What's up, guys? This is Bradley alongside Dawson. Zach could not be with us today. He's feeling a bit under the weather. But today we are starting a new series this offseason where we're going to sort of preview all of the notable position groups on the Ravens roster. Like, we're not going to talk about quarterback or running back just because there's not much to address in those position groups. But today we're going to be talking about edge, pass rusher, outside linebacker, whatever you want to call it. And we're excited to get into it. Dawson, how are you feeling about this position group overall heading into the offseason?
I'm pretty excited to talk about this one specifically. I think this is the one everyone's kind of waiting for. I think this is probably the biggest, need this offseason by the Ravens. I think this is the one everyone's kind of waiting to see how Baltimore goes to address it. And there's a multitude of ways they can do it. We're going to discuss it here, today, but I'm pretty excited to talk about it. There's a lot of intriguing routes the Ravens could go here to, shore up this position.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the Ravens didn't really lose anyone at this spot, but we kind of just see it as not good enough slash couple of aging guys on here possibly. But just to kick off the discussion, we're going to talk about the players that are currently under contract next season. And that is Odafe Owe, Kyle Van Noy, David Ojabo, Tavius Robinson, Adisa Isaac, and Malik Ham. Those 6 players are all on the current roster for next season. The only guy the Ravens lost is Malik Harrison in this position group, and honestly, he's been playing more off-ball linebacker recently, so I probably wouldn't even call it a loss. So yeah, Dawson, how do you feel about these 6 guys going into next year?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I think we kind of discussed it in our last pod. I think I mentioned it. It's crazy. Once again, we're sitting here preaching for, edge rush, additions. And I think we were second in the NFL in sacks this season. And we had 2 guys with double-digit sacks. So it's kind of bizarre that we're sitting here saying this is the biggest need when, quite frankly, if you're looking at the box score, the Ravens were one of the best teams this year at getting to the quarterback. But either way, it's 100% a need. Everybody knows this. There's no sugarcoating it. There's no beating around the bush. This is a position that the team needs to go out this offseason and make a big punch at. And they need to make a splash, and they need to know that going into next season, week 1, that you have a guy who can lead this unit, if they all stay healthy, of course, that can lead this unit and get it done. And I'm not going to sit here and act like we have a great unit, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and act like we have a bunch of trash bags out there, because the unit overall is pretty decent. It's far from the worst in the NFL, but it definitely needs some additions. So, I mean, you go off top, you have Odafe Owe. You got a guy who's now been in the NFL a few seasons, who has shown, quite frankly, a pretty big, I guess you could say improvement. And he's been pretty well last couple seasons. So obviously he's not going anywhere. Then you got you got that middle ground of guys in David Ojabo, Adisa Isaac, second-year player this year. He will be. And then Tavius Robinson. I mean, you got guys like that who you can't rely on yet. You can't look at them and rely on, okay, he's going to go in as our number 2 and 3 next year and get the job done. These are guys who are completely raw, completely flat on the surface, and you don't know what to get from them. And it's a bonus, of course, if they step up and have a good year. But like I said, by no means necessary can the Ravens sit here and know and expect them to do anything. The Ravens have to go into this offseason like they have Odafe Owe, and that's it. And Kyle Van Noy, of course. But he's an aging pass rusher. He's probably got a couple seasons left. He's been great for the Ravens, I will say, since they signed him a couple years ago. This guy has put up fantastic numbers. I mean, considering he's, 33, 34 years old, I'm going to guess. I mean, seriously, this guy has been pretty damn good for the Ravens. But, I mean, in my eyes, you have to go into this offseason with 2 guys in the room, essentially one with Odafe Owe, and you need to go get a number 1 pass rusher. You need to go get a guy where can complement Odafe Owe, push him to the 2 spot, and just thrive. I mean, if you go out and get a big-time pass rusher and you can kick Odafe over, dude, I just imagine him as a number 2. It would be great. Because we're sitting here with our number 1, and we like what we're getting, but it could be better. We know this. Mm-hmm. But, man, if Ravens make one big move, man, it could prove numbers, and it would be substantially better than what they have right now.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those position groups that if this is who it was going into the season, you wouldn't be it wouldn't be terrible, but it's not what you're hoping for. And we saw the Eagles get pressure with 4 so easily in the Super Bowl, and we've talked about the trenches. O-line's going to be another video we do here. how important the O-line and the D-line are, and obviously edge rushers are a part of that. So in terms of making that splash move, like you were talking about, Dawson, there are some guys that could be traded this offseason. I think number one is going to be Myles Garrett, possibly could get traded. Ravens are unfortunately not going to be able to get him unless they blew the Browns out of the water with an offer that no other team was even close to, which probably wouldn't be smart on the Ravens' part anyway. Max Crosby's another guy that there's been some rumors about, but it honestly feels to me like he's pretty committed to Vegas. I almost said Oakland still, but um, with Pete Carroll over there, I feel like he's fine where he's at. I don't think the Raiders are looking to move him. And then probably the most it's funny, I say most realistic option, even though it's pretty far away still. But Micah Parsons is, there's been some talks within the Cowboys organization about either extending him or moving on from him. I believe he has 1 year left on his deal, and they still haven't extended him. So that's interesting. Usually, when you have a star player like that, you want to get him locked up for the future. So he could possibly be a name to watch going into this one. How do you feel about, I guess more so Micah Parsons, but any of those three guys, Dawson?
Yeah, I don't think people realize that like Myles Garrett, there's literally a 0% chance he comes to Baltimore. Like the Ravens are in such a tough spot that no matter who, if anyone trades for him, is going to have to give up a king's ransom. The
Mhm.
Ravens will have to give triple that. Like
Like, it would
you're
be
talking like a Kyle Hamilton, Nate Wiggins in like a first round pick, and probably more.
it would probably be, like, another first, if not more than, like, what a different team offers, and that would just
Yes,
not be
like it would just be an absolutely terrible decision by the Ravens. And he's what 29 years old, and it's like obviously he's great, but you would set yourself back by getting him.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think you're right too on the Max Crosby front. I think he's not going anywhere. I think
Mhm,
unless a team calls out of nowhere, like Detroit or something, I think
mhm.
that he's probably locked in with Vegas because he seems to be bought into the new Pete Carroll regime, which I don't blame him. I would be too.
Yeah,
And they're one quarterback. They get a quarter, go out there and get one this offseason, man, and they're not looking too awful. So I
yeah.
understand that he's probably going to stay there. And I think it's a pipe dream, man. I think it's Micah Parsons, or I think you have to. I think Eric DeCosta, man, you have 11 draft picks at your disposal. You have tons of large contracts. You can just not, I don't want to say easily because we're not in that business, doing what he does, but you can restructure them. I mean, you can make cap happen. And then the NFL came out today and announced that the cap space is actually substantially larger than they projected. So that's even better news. That helps the Ravens and I mean all teams, of course, but I think that Dallas is 100% fielding calls for Micah Parsons because if they weren't, you wouldn't even get to this point where we are right now. He would be locked up under contract for at least 3 or 4 more seasons to this point. And I think the fact that he's not signed yet is just absolutely blasphemy. He's like their best player outside of CeeDee Lamb, of course. I mean, that's literally their franchise pass rusher, dude.
Yeah,
He's 25 years old, entering his prime, and he's never had less than I think 11 or 12 sacks in a season.
yeah,
So this is a pipe dream for the Ravens, but they can absolutely go do it. They have the picks. They can make the cap work. They have players they could potentially trade to Dallas to alleviate how many picks you got to give up. I mean, you never know, dude. You
I
never know in
know.
the NFL. There's potentially a guy on the offensive side of the ball for Baltimore that could be dealt and would probably benefit the Cowboys. I think it's hard to sit here and imagine it happening, but there's by no means necessary am I going to sit here and say it can't happen because it absolutely can.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know. You never know in these situations. We've seen plenty of trades happen those first couple days of the new league year that no one was expecting. So,
Can you
who
imagine
knows?
Micah Parsons, man? Oh my god.
And yeah, like you
It would.
said, I mean, it'd be crazy. Like you said, the money would not be an issue. It'd be more so, what are you willing to give up?
Yeah,
Um,
who knows, dude? Dallas, I mean, Jerry Jones has a history of making very questionable
yeah,
decisions, and it would not surprise me at all if there was a trade, whether it's to Baltimore or anywhere, and it's lower than people thought. Like the return
yeah,
is much
yeah.
lower than expected. People are out here saying 2 first-round picks and a player, or whatever. It's like, dude, you realistically could, for example, what if the Ravens go out and get Micah Parsons for Mark Andrews, a second and a fourth? I mean, or a first and a fourth. I mean, seriously,
Yeah,
like it's not as crazy as it seems, man. A
yeah,
team could potentially rob the Cowboys and get them. And like I said, if they're fielding calls, man, they're clearly not as committed to locking them up long term, which makes no sense whatsoever. But a team could benefit. A team could benefit by it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. That'll be interesting. It'll also be very interesting to see what happens with Myles Garrett. Obviously won't be a Raven, but Browns don't want to trade him. I wonder, how that's gonna go this offseason. But there's a lot of free agent edge rushers, Dawson, this offseason. And I'll just name some of these notable guys that we've sort of wrote down on our own here. Khalil Mack, 33 years old, coming from the Chargers. Maybe another 1 or 2 good years in him. I kind of look at this as similar to Von Miller a few years ago. Kind of a risky thing. If he still is good, it could pay off. If he's not, then obviously it'd be a big waste of money. Joey Bosa is probably going to be released. Pretty injury prone guy, so I think that'd be risky as well. A guy I like a lot, Josh Sweat from the Eagles, big Super Bowl. He's 27 years old. I think this will be his third contract. Spotrac has his market value at about 19 million. That's something I would be okay with. I think he's a really good player. Obviously, Dawson, you mentioned the cap today. Crazy how high it's getting and will continue to get. So that's a guy I like. Chase Young, DeMarcus Lawrence, Charles Omenihu from the Chiefs, Hassan Reddick had a bit of an issue with the Jets this year. Azeez Ojulari, a guy you and I both like, Dawson, a young guy from the Giants, just finished his rookie contract.
We
Not a
wanted him at the
ton.
deadline.
Yeah, not a ton of production, but always has hung around 5 to 10-ish sacks. He's like 24, 25 years old, a lot of talent. Then you got Dante Fowler, 30-year-old breakout season. So that's, pretty cool for him. Commanders might try to retain him. And Matthew Judon, the 32-year-old. When I saw that Matt Judon was 32, I was like, where did the time go? I feel
That's
like he was
wild.
just 27, but if any, let's say obviously the Ravens don't go out and trade for anyone crazy. Anyone on here that's catching your eye, Dawson?
So I think it's a tradition that the Ravens, they love their comp picks. They love their compensatory pick arsenal, and they always benefit by going out and getting guys who are released. It's just the Raven way, and it seems to work out in their favor a lot. So I can't sit here and bash it whatsoever. But I just want to say that this year, I would like the Ravens, especially with this position, to just go out and get a young guy. I don't care what you got to pay. If you can make it work and keep your team intact, of course, and you're not losing out elsewhere, go get a guy who's young and you can get a good chunk of years from where they can grow at that position, because it's been far too long since we've had a young guy who year in, year out, you know what you're getting. I would say since Terrell Suggs is the last time we had like a truly dominant pass rusher, and that was
young.
9 years ago? I mean, God, I don't even know. I can't think of
And
time
he wasn't
right now.
young 9 years ago. He was young
Right, but
15
I'm
years
saying
ago.
like the last
But
time we had a really productive season.
Him and Doomerville together.
And I want to go back to the beginning part of this too, because we mentioned like the Odafe Owe and Kyle Vanoy both had double-digit sacks. And by all means necessary, that's great. There's just not a game-changing element to their game. Like when you watch them, it's a lot of coverage sacks. It's a lot of the quarterbacks falling into their laps. Like it's not like they're truly running through the offensive line and like star power break. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not a TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons impact. Looking at this list, I don't know, man. I would not be a fan of Khalil Mack. His market value is like north of 21 million a season, and he's 33 years old, and I'm just not a fan of that. Who knows? He could come out and have like the worst season of his career, and there goes all that money. As much as I don't really want to admit it, I think Joey Bosa is a very intriguing option for Baltimore if he does get released. That just seems like a Ravens signing. He would not factor into the, draft pick dispute. It would not be a comp pick situation for the Ravens once again. He's been really injured the last few years. He hasn't really had any production because he hasn't been playing. But we all know when he does play, a full season, he's been pretty productive. I just think he's a little overrated. I would not be a huge fan of that. I just don't think that's like you add him and we're good at pass rusher. I don't think you put Joey Bosa in that room and I think like, oh, we're good. Like that. We got a good room. Like I would not feel significantly better than just marching out Kyle Vanoy and Odafe Owe. Like I would rather just have Kyle Vanoy go out there again. Seriously.
Then spend all that money on Joey Bosa.
Right. And that's essentially what the Ravens are doing. They're going to have to find a replacement for Kyle Vanoy this offseason and allow him to take a step back and continue in that, rotational role, not where he's playing every snap of the game.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
basically trying to find a guy next to Odafe Owe that's better than Owe and can be the number one. And like you said, Josh Sweat had a great Super Bowl, had the best game of his career and the most important game right before he hits free agency, man. That is
Yeah.
awesome. And he's 27 years old. He's very, very high ceiling. He's had a pretty good year. He came from the Philly. Obviously, their defensive front was phenomenal all season long. And I mean, if you're going to go out and make a splash at any of these guys, I think he would probably have to be the target just because you have the age in
Mhm.
there and his market's not too crazy. I mean, for a guy considering how
Yeah.
good he's been, and he's 27. So if they're going to go out anyone on this list, I think Josh Sweat's probably my number one option. I just going on that list that I'm looking at right now, Brad, I don't think any of those guys towards the bottom are an upgrade over Kyle Vanoy.
Mhm.
And I mean, seriously, Kyle Vanoy has been very productive for the Ravens. And you sign Azeez Ojulari and you're just throwing him right into a mosh pit with David Ojabo and Adisa Isaac and Kyle Vanoy. It's just like there's no clear upgrade there. You're just throwing in the exact same player in there. And you got a room full of just hopeful guys that you hope can do it. I'd rather go out, spend the assets, and get somebody where you know for a fact what you're getting. You know what I mean? Like I would rather just go get a clear upgrade rather than adding the exact same kind of
Mhm.
player. And I think everybody on the list is the exact same player. I'm not a huge fan of this free agent list, as you can probably tell by now. The only one that I think there would be a slight upgrade, like I mentioned, would probably be Josh Sweat. And I truly don't know if I would want the Ravens to throw 19 million a season at him. I mean that's a 3-year, $60 million contract. I mean,
Mhm.
I just don't think I'd want them to throw that at him. I would rather go out and trade for somebody, whether that means trade for a player already on a team or potentially trade up in the draft to grab one of these guys that we're going to mention here in a little bit. I
Yeah.
just I don't think any of these free agent pass rushers serve any true upgrade over what we already have.
Yeah, it's kinda you look at them and every single name sort of has a risk there. Uh,
Right.
like you mentioned, Josh Sweat's probably the least risk, but you still I mean, he's been on the Eagles his whole career, like, I mean, we saw it happen with Unique Ngakoue, like, who knows what's gonna happen when a pass rusher gets to a new team.
Right. And also, anybody will benefit from being on that line in Philly.
Yeah.
My God, their defense is just star from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Anyone can benefit from that. Now, you sign Josh Sweat and throw him at the number one spot in our, you know, edge group, and who knows, dude? I don't want to say he can't put up the same production, but who knows, dude?
Yeah, and, like, I mean, I would definitely be intrigued with Aziz, like, maybe a excuse me, like a 2-year, $15 million deal, like, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with doing that, um, especially if you're not able to get anyone else, uh, and then also maybe drafting someone, but I don't know, it's definitely an interesting list, and we'll see, maybe other guys get cut too. Joey Bosa's the only one that's been rumored to be cut. There's probably gonna
Right.
be a few more names that join that list as well. In
I
terms of
mean, real quick, just the way
yeah,
I look at it, man. Like I'm gonna preach this because I really want people to get the like understand where I'm coming from. The group we have, I'm not crapping any of the players. It's a
they're
lot of
solid, they're
guys.
solid.
It's a lot of guys that the Ravens have hope in and they think can develop into really good players. The Ravens have such a scary track history with these pass rushers from the draft in recent years where, God forbid, and not a lot of them have shown up. A lot of them kind of drown out in the lineups and end up, moving on. I just, if they're going to go out and get a pass rusher this offseason with the intention of like, this is our new guy, I just pray to God they don't go out and throw the exact same player in the lineup because I'm telling you, I like Azeez Ojulari. He's a good player. He's young. There's a lot of upside there. I just want to go into week one next year, wherever that may be. I want to go in knowing for a fact that this is our number one and number two, and they're going to play the majority of the game. Everybody behind them is rotational snaps, and they're not truly getting like a 40% snap share in these games. Because right now, it's Odafe Owe, and that's a rotation of everybody else. And that's fine. But at the same time, there's a clear way to upgrade that. Just go out and get a pedigree guy where you know is your number one and quit relying on these middle of the road guys who you just hope can get a sack here and there and bounce around in the lineup. And you have one guy getting 80% of snaps at pass rush and then all the other guys getting 25, 30%. I just go get a clear upgrade. The only one on here, I think, like we said, is Josh Sweat, but we can move on. I want people to
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
that that's what the Ravens should do.
yeah. Yeah, we want them to go get that guy to, be able to win some one-on-ones, and obviously OA and Van Noy both win one-on-ones. Who knows, maybe OA has 13 sacks next year, but still, I mean, this roster is great already. You can add a few pieces here and there,
Right.
even if it's already a strong position group. In terms of the draft, we're just going to kind of brush over this because once April comes, we're going to be doing a lot more in-depth draft analysis and sort of talking about the guys we like and all that.
Post
But
free agency too. So if the Ravens make any moves in free
exactly.
agency, it 100% impacts.
Yeah. So Abdul Carter is going to go top 3.
He could literally go number 1 overall.
So probably not going to be a Raven there.
Unless Tennessee calls and wants Lamar Jackson and the Ravens actually do it, Abdul Carter will never be a Raven.
um, And then there's like I haven't done it. The only guy I've really watched on here is Mike Green. But you have James Pierce from Tennessee, Mikael Williams and Jelon Walker, both from Georgia. Solid guys, probably gonna be first round picks. Shamar Stewart is more of a bigger guy, probably the highest chance Shamar Stewart is to be there at 27. Mike Green, man, I was about a month ago. He was sort of who I was hoping for the Ravens to draft at 27. And then at the Senior Bowl, he has this clip of mowing down
Dude,
who was it? The Oregon tackle. I can't remember his name, but like
put him right in the dirt.
a day 1, maybe day 2 tackle from Oregon. And I was like, it felt similar to remember when DK Metcalf ran the 4.33 at the combine? The whole offseason, February, March, or before the combine, excuse me. I was like, DK Metcalf is like the guy I want the Ravens to
Mhm.
draft. And then he ran the 4.33 at the combine, and I was like, well, that's not happening anymore. He's going
Right
top
out the window.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. Didn't he end up going later anyway? That was kind of crazy, but
Yeah, DK
um,
went like late.
yeah. Did he
AJ
go in the
went
second round?
AJ went early. DK
Did
went after
DK
him, I'm pretty
go in
sure.
the second round?
I'm pretty sure he went like
So
40th.
like, I was completely wrong there, but that's when the Ravens drafted Hollywood, right? Yeah, I think it was.
That draft was loaded with receivers.
Yeah. But anyway, that's kind of sort of how I felt with Mike Green, even though DK ended up going in the second round anyway. Mike Green, I've seen him in the top 10 in some mock drafts. So
Dude, he is skyrocketing up draft boards right now. Like this guy could literally go top 15 and it will not be a surprise whatsoever because that's exactly how draft season goes. You have a good, senior bowl, you have a good combine, you have a good pro day. Like you'll be drafted, man. It's all on recent, performance. And we all know the Zach Wilson story. Dude made one good throw at a pro day and went second overall. And
yeah,
no
yeah.
disrespect, but see where that got the Jets. And so, I mean, seriously, Abdul. I mean, the only guy on here that truly makes any sense. I mean, I don't. Like we said, we have no idea what the Ravens are going to do in free agency. So this discussion will be better, in a month or two from now.
Yeah.
Right now, it's hard to because I truly do think in free agency they'll be active in this pass rush market. So we could be talking about fourth round pass rushing prospects rather than first round.
Mhm.
I think James Pierce is a guy that's really strong. He's a really good athletic profile, but I've seen a little bit of concerns. Don't know if they're confirmed whatsoever. Do not take this, word for word out of my mouth. But I've seen there's potentially some concerns over his whole character. But so that could be teams just throwing smoke to try to get him to draft fall on the draft board where they can draft him. Um, Mike Green, I think there's no chance he falls to our pick. I think
Yeah.
he'll be top 20, 100%. A team will trade up for him if he starts falling. Um, maybe the Ravens, who knows? Maybe the Ravens could trade up
Yeah.
for him. They could trade up for a guy. You never know. They have the capital to do it. Maybe this is a year they see a window and they want to trade up and get one of these early pass rushers because they know they have a great, great coach in Chuck Smith, Dr. Rush, back in Baltimore that can help these guys, who has already proven to be a very good coach and has like literally like shot the development of these guys into the future. Um, I want to save this conversation for after free agency because I think that right now my prediction, round one, the first night of the draft, I truly think pass rusher is going to be not so big of a worry for the Ravens as it is like right now. If you're
Mhm.
thinking about it, I really think this is going to be a free agency, addressed by the Ravens.
Yeah, for sure. So to sort of get into what we would do, you want to just sort of talk about this together because we both basically
Yeah,
agreed exactly the same? So Dawson and I both basically said the exact same thing when we were talking pre-show. Um, Plan A here: call Jerry Jones, see if you can get Micah Parsons. Call the Browns just in case. There's
I wouldn't even pick up the
no,
phone.
you got to do it. Just
I
it
would
takes
not pick
10
up the phone.
minutes.
They're gonna literally like, hey Browns, what would you like for Miles Garrett? It's the Ravens here. They're gonna say Kyle Hamilton. Boop. Hang
No,
up.
you at least call them. Call the Raiders, but see if you can get Micah Parsons. If you get him, you're good. You can draft a pass rusher in the 5th round if you like someone.
I wouldn't even draft a pass rusher.
Yeah, well, they have 70,000 picks, so
But you're gonna have to give up some of those picks.
yeah,
You get Micah Parsons.
that's true. So then, obviously, if you can't get Micah Parsons, this is probably the 90% chance scenario here, sign one of these guys. Josh Sweat, we like a lot. If you can't get anyone, Aziz, Dante Fowler, it's better to get someone than no one. And then go edge in either. Hopefully, the Ravens tackle situation is fine, and you can either go edge in the 1st or 2nd round, whatever. I like to call it educated BPA, best player available. So you want to go best player available, but if you have a slight need, maybe you lean. Maybe there's an edge guy you really like and a tight end you really like. Okay, pick the edge guy. That's sort of how I look at it. How would you add on to anything I said there?
Right. I think you kind of displayed that out in a good way. I hate to sit here and like be on a podcast for people listening and be like, go trade for Micah Parsons. Like it's obviously the cliche thing, like go out and get like the number one
Yeah,
guy. Like I truly do believe this is possible for the Ravens. Like I'm not just
yeah,
saying this for clicks. I'm not saying this for whatever. Like I truly believe the Ravens can make this happen. And I truly believe Dallas would be willing to do this. Like I said, if they were not willing to trade Parsons, we wouldn't even be having this conversation because he would have been locked up last year for 4 more years. So I truly believe they need to call. I wouldn't even call Cleveland because it is going to be the biggest waste of your time. Like a 0%
it's not a waste
chance.
of time. Just do it.
The only freaking way Miles Garrett can even potentially land in Baltimore is if he specifically tells the front office he wants to be a Raven.
That's why you got to call just in case. Just
I
in
mean,
case.
if he demands a release, which would never happen,
He
it just trade.
demands a trade to the Ravens.
That's the only way, dude. It's not happening. I want to be a Raven, and you're going to make it happen. If we get him for like a 4th round pick, but I don't think that's possible. I think Max Crosby's possible. I just don't think he wants to leave Vegas,
Yeah.
and he's not wanting to leave. They're not going to trade him. The only realistic trade candidate is Micah Parsons, and God forbid something else emerges out of nowhere. You know, it's the NFL offseason, dude. There's random trade requests at all times. There's random
Yeah.
releases. Next thing you know, dude, another top pass rusher is available. Who knows? The
Mhm.
craziest stuff happens in the NFL, man.
Exactly.
I'm calling Dallas with every intention of we will pretty much give you whatever you want as long as we're not taking a step back at a substantial step back somewhere else. So
Mhm.
as long as it's not like Lamar, Kyle Hamilton, Tyler Linderbaum, or like Isaiah Likely, I'm not. I'll give them whoever they want, like or Nate Wiggins. Like I'm seriously like, man, I'm entertaining that offer in a big way for Micah, and I'm willing to cut corners if you get a franchise pass rusher who's 25 and
Yeah.
he's an absolute freak of nature. Him and Odafe would be beautiful.
Yeah.
Either way, that is what I want the Ravens to do. That's what I would do if I'm the Ravens. I would basically give everything, go get Micah Parsons, and then, dude, you're set. You don't have to draft a pass rusher in the draft this year because you still have a lot of young guys, Adisa Isaac, David Ajabo. Like, you're still hoping these guys can step up, and why would you want to just throw in another one? I mean, you got 2 guys right there who are young that you're hoping can become something one day. So go get Micah, and pass rusher is set. You're done. Lock them up. It's over. You got your guys. Now, my honest prediction, if I have
Mhm.
$500 in my hand right now and they say, you have to predict what the Ravens are going to do for pass rush, this is what's going to happen. They're going to call. They're not going to like the offers. They're going to unfortunately pass. Mr. Joe Ortiz over in LA is going to call Joey Bosa's agent and tell him that he's getting released. Former Raven, Joe Ortiz, of course, director of player personnel, great GM. Joey Bosa is going to be launched out of LA. And guess who's going to call Joey Bosa's agent? Eric DeCosta. Eric DeCosta is going to call Joey Bosa, ink a deal. Joey Bosa is going to come to Baltimore, probably on a 2 or 3 year deal. Nothing crazy. I mean, it's going to be a pretty good amount of money, but it's not going to be like a freaking $25
Mega
million
deal.
deal. I think probably like a
20.
2-year deal for 35, 3. I mean, something like that. It's going to be, we'll see. I think it's going to be a little less than 20 just because the injury history, teams are going to be hesitant. So I think, honestly, like a Joey Bosa signing makes a lot of sense. I just,
Yeah.
doesn't factor into the comp pick formula. And it's just,
I would be fine with that.
I would
It's
be
there's an
okay
injury risk
with
there.
it. I would be okay with it. I would not love it by
I
any
would
means.
not be jumping up and down, but
I would not see it as a substantial upgrade over what we have right now. So I think Joey Bosa is probably a realistic signing for the Ravens, and I think they'll probably draft a guy mid-round. That's my prediction. I hope that's not the route,
yeah.
but that's a fallback option that I guess is not the end of the world. So get Joey Bosa when he gets launched out of LA. Go draft a guy like round 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Have him work with Chuck Smith. Hopefully, one of these guys can step up, and then we're trotting out Owe and Joey Bosa week 1,
Yeah.
which
I mean, that's
not
and
awful, not great, but
you mentioned how Bosa's not much of an upgrade, but like when you look at it, like Owe and Bosa with like Van Noy as the third guy, Tavius
right.
Robinson uh, can really get in there, defend the run really well, and who knows if he can if he can turn into like a really good pass rusher as well. So
Yeah, and it's
just
I also want
adding
to make
guys.
sure too. Like we haven't mentioned these guys a lot. You got Tavis Robinson. I've completely blanked on him. That's my guy, dude. I don't know how I
I
forgot about
know that's your
Tavius.
guy.
That's my dog, bro. I love that guy. But like we're not forgetting, we're not overlooking
Adisa
these guys.
Isaac, Ojabo.
Like these guys are all there. We know that, but you absolutely cannot rely on them to give you what you want. Like we just gotta
Yeah.
hope. We gotta do what we need to do to make the changes necessary, and just hope that out of nowhere they can make an impact. But like they're still there, man. They're still really good players. There's still
Yeah.
a lot of ceiling to be hopefully hit. Like Chuck Smith can can make it happen. He can get it out of them. Like we're not disbanding these players whatsoever. Like we want them to be good, but the Ravens cannot rely on them. That's all we're trying to get at.
And the Ravens are so close. They're so close, and they probably need one more superstar. And
God.
obviously we hope they keep Stanley. And on top of that, I think they need one more guy that is going to make a big play in the playoffs. What is it? Is it the defense has forced 2 turnovers in Lamar's playoff career so far? What has
And
he
we've had
played?
like
He played
18.
7 games, 8 games. I mean, that's kind of brutal.
That's what I'm
So
saying, man. Like we have a good secondary, man, and we're gonna get into the other position groups, but it's like
yeah,
you add a true game changing like pass rusher who can get to the quarterback by
yeah.
himself. Like, man, this
Like
defense it would be so much better.
that guy who's going to get a strip sack in the 4th quarter of the AFC Championship. Like they haven't they haven't had that since Suggs and Doomerville. So
Yeah. Like right now, would
um,
you rather like right now, if you could only have one, it might be a stupid question, but if you could only have one of
mhm.
these players on the Ravens right now, would you have Marlowe or Micah? Right. It's not an easy question. You have to think about it. It's like, dude,
I think that I would rather have Marlon Humphrey. The cornerback room would look really bad without him right now. Uh,
right.
I'd rather have
I was just
Marlon.
curious to where you stand on
Yeah.
that. It's
No,
like
that's interesting.
you have the good corners, but we don't have a good pass rusher. And
Because
it's like,
without Marlon, it would be Wiggins and Tampa.
right. And then would we have the same conversation we're having now with pass rushers about secondary,
Yeah, I think
about corners?
it'd just be fixing one thing and
Yeah.
messing up another. So
I don't know, man. I think the Ravens can do it. I think they can do it and not lose substantially elsewhere.
yeah,
I think it's possible.
the cap is
We'll
going to
see.
go more up and up and up and up and up and up. So
Ravens can do it. They
yeah,
want to. This is what winning teams do, man. They go out and make splashes and sure up the weaknesses, and they make a run at it.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they end up doing. I believe our next video is going to be offensive line, which
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know about you, but that's probably I feel most strongly about that. I
I
think
cannot wait.
offensive line is the most important thing on a team besides quarterback. So I'm excited to get into that. But for now, thanks everyone for watching this episode and for being here with us this off season. And we will see you guys. Oh, I'm completely forgetting to say this. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. check us out on Spotify if you would rather listen over there. And yeah, appreciate you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time. Peace.